How's it going? Grant here, welcome back to the channel. And I'm just out here walking my dog today, so I figured I'd do a quick video on the OnePlus 5 announcement that just dropped today. And so I know all the reviews are dropping from the big YouTube channels and the bigger tech publications as soon as the announcement was over. I saw a couple podcasts by Jay Will and TK from Total Tech with their thoughts on the OnePlus 5. So I thought I'd stop and do a quick video and ask you guys what you think about the OnePlus 5 and share my quick thoughts here. So my quick thoughts were, in watching the rebroadcast since I was at work when it was live, is that I don't think I missed much because it wasn't really a live announcement. It really looked like a pre-recorded broadcast, which was kind of awkward to watch, to be honest. But aside from that, I think the OnePlus 5 kind of breaks down to three different things. Number one is spec bump, number two is incremental design change, and number three are those dual cameras. And so first of all, with the specs, it's now got that latest Snapdragon 835 processor. It's got the most RAM, I think, in any phone right now, up to 8 gigs. It's got the 6 gig version, but the 3T had it. So if you're going to get it, you may as well get the one with the 8 gigs. So that's the spec bump, and I think that was the right thing to do. They kind of had to do that, especially since their main crowd is the tech enthusiast crowd. But I did find it interesting that they kind of dismissed the specs. Carl Pei up front said, here's the specs. If you don't care, you can pretty much leave now. And I thought that was kind of weird because their audience cares about specs. The tech enthusiast crowd and the OnePlus crowd cares about specs. Otherwise, why else would you put 8 gigs of RAM in a phone? It's just not needed. The 3T with a Snapdragon 821 and 6 gigs just flies right now. And I've never thought that, hey, I need more RAM in it. So the only reason you're doing it is for the tech crowd who wants the highest end specs, so that, you know, when they all drop their phones on the table and says what you got, they can say they got the highest end specs. And, you know, usually with that kind of crowd, the highest specs win. That's what they care about. So I thought it was kind of weird for them to dismiss that. It's something that they say they're in tune with their customers, and if they were in tune with their customers, they know that a good portion of the customers care about high-end specs. And so for them to kind of gloss over that, I thought was weird. But if they want to gloss over that and get more into design, and especially the camera, that was also an interesting aspect because the design was pretty much just incremental to me. If you look at the front, it looks pretty much exactly like the 3 and the 3T. The back, everyone's going to say it looks like an iPhone 7 Plus, and I get where that's coming from. It's got the same dual camera setup, and especially the camera housing is exactly the same. It's got aluminum back, so it's going to look the same. But if I really take a look at least in the pictures and the videos, it really looks, I think it's going to be a lot different from a OnePlus 7 physically if you just hold it, because the 7 Plus is just a rectangle, flat rectangle. So when you hold it, it's pretty uncomfortable because there's no curve in the back to fit into your palm. Whereas I think the OnePlus 5 does have those curved back edges, and it's also a little bit more narrow and I think a little bit less tall. So I think it's going to fit a lot better in the palm of your hand, even though it's a 5.5-inch display. And kind of speaking about the display, they still came out with a 1080p display. So there's a lot of rumors that it'll get additional spec bumps like a 2K display finally, and also maybe a larger battery like a 4,000 milliamp hour battery. But they went with the good old 1080p display and a 3,200 or 3,300 milliamp hour battery, I think. So that should be fine. I think if they optimize the software, especially with stock Android, they're claiming, I think, something like 20% more battery life or something like that than the 3 and the 3T. And it can be achieved. I mean, if you look at the U11 with a 3,000 milliamp hour battery, HTC's been able to optimize that software where people are getting really good screen time, 5, 6, 7 hours. So I do believe it's possible with the OnePlus 5, even on just 3,300 milliamps. I think if you optimize the software off of stock, you can probably get some really good battery life. But, you know, bigger's better, especially in battery life on Android. So 4,000 would have been nicer. And probably a lot of people are going to be disappointed about that 1080p display. You know, it's their fourth phone now, even though it's the OnePlus 5, so fourth version of this phone. A lot of people are probably going to look out for a 2K display at this point, and they didn't come out with one. It's still a 1080p, and I think 1080p can look fine. And a lot of people will probably say you won't be able to physically tell the difference with your eyes, and I kind of disagree, because for me personally, when I'm staring at high-end phones like this Galaxy S8 Plus that I'm using to shoot this video at, with a really nice AMOLED 2K display, if I'm using that day-to-day a lot, my eyes get adjusted to that. And so I can actually tell the difference when I go back to a 1080p display, even a nice 1080p display on the OnePlus 3T. The icons don't look quite as sharp. The text doesn't look quite as crisp. Just like the S8, when you dumb it down to 1080, I know when it's at 1080 because of the same reasons. The icons are okay, but I think the text really is not nearly as sharp and crisp. It's kind of like when Apple came out with their Retina displays. No one thought it was a really big deal until they really saw it and used it every day. And then they went back to a non-Retina display. You can totally tell the difference. Your eyes adjust, and so you can really tell that difference. So I think to say that you can't, or not everyone can tell the difference between a 2K and a 1080p display, I disagree. I think if you're just using a 2K display all day, every day, you're going to know that difference if you go back down to 1080. And while it's not bad, You know, I think at this point, especially if you want to put yourself in the category of flagship, nowadays you're going to need that 2K display. So that's a little bit disappointing there. And then, you know, with the rest of the design, like I said, it may look like an iPhone from the back, but physically when you hold it, I don't think it's going to really feel like an iPhone. I think it'll feel a lot better. And the only thing that really is going to make it look like an iPhone is that dual camera, especially the camera housing. So I think I can get over that. I think a lot of people should get over that. It's not really a big deal there, at least to me. And then finally, the dual cameras. That's basically the leading thing on their webpage right now. They're leading off with these dual cameras, and so that's a differentiator in the OnePlus 5. So, you know, I think anybody who reviews this phone really has got to look long and hard at these cameras and really review them hard. And so I'm going to put them through my camera samples, and I'll compare it to some other phones, including the 3T. The 3Ts come a little bit, not a far way, but they made some improvements in the software, especially in low light on the 3T. So it's looking a little bit better. So I'll put it up against that. I'll put it up against the other flagships like the U Ultra, U11, the S8, and I think we really have to heavily scrutinize the cameras, because that's the major differentiator to me, beyond the specs, because I don't care about the specs so much. I know a lot of techies will. They're going to want the most highest end specs, and for your money, you should expect that. That's fine. But I never once thought that the 3 and the 3T needed more processing power, or especially more RAM. You know, the 3T flies on an 821 and 6 gigs of RAM, you know, absolutely flies through it, chews through everything. So I never thought I needed any more. So the specs are kind of irrelevant to me. The looks are incremental, and I think it looks nice and clean. It's nothing that's going to wow anyone, but it definitely looks good. It's a very clean looking phone, and I think that's important. I think to have a nice looking clean phone is good. I like an all metal design, so I know I'm going to like the design of this phone. So the only real differentiator for me is what they're basically saying is these cameras. So for me, the cameras better be really good, especially when they're pretty much pitting it against the iPhone 7 Plus themselves. I mean, come on, they said they purposely went with the dual camera setup with a telephoto lens instead of the wide angle lens like the G6, so they could achieve that bokeh effect on their photos, just like the iPhone 7 Plus. And they're even calling that mode portrait mode, just like Apple's iPhone 7 Plus. So whether they can deny it later if they want, but in their marketing and what they're saying, they're putting their cameras directly up against that iPhone 7 Plus, from everything they've commented about the hardware design to the software design to what they're naming the special portrait mode, and even designing the camera and the housing to look like an iPhone 7 Plus. So I have a hard time believing any of that's unintentional. So, you know, obviously comparison should be against the 7 Plus. I'll do that as well, and we'll see which is better. I know there's a bunch of camera reviews out there by a lot of the big YouTubers, but I like doing it myself. I like taking photos in my environments that I'm mostly going to be in, and I like to see what the photos are going to come out and how they're going to come out and which one looks better. So I'll do that. Let me know what other kind of camera comparisons you want to see, or anything else you might want to know about the OnePlus 5. I ordered it. It should be coming in, I think, this Friday, no later than Monday. So I think that's one area where you have to give kudos to OnePlus, is that this time around they actually have stock ready to ship, and they're shipping it right now. So it's the first early batch, and so I'm sure they've set aside a limited reserve for that. But hey, they've got stock on day one of the announcement, and so, you know, I think that's where you've got to hand it to OnePlus. That's an improvement area for them. They announced it, they dropped the phone, and you can buy it right now if you're quick enough. And I think 27th is when they're saying the official launch is going to be at, so they'll have presumably a lot more stock on the 27th, because right now all that pre-order for the early batch is all gone and sold out, the 6 and 8 gig versions. You know, I was lucky enough to get in there really quickly and get one, so I'll get it maybe on Friday or Monday, and we'll put it through its paces. So like I said, let me know what else you might want to see. What else? And I think that's kind of it. I think it's not a symptom of OnePlus. I think it's an incremental update. They updated all the right areas, the specs, a little bit of design, and really camera. Because camera, to me personally, camera and battery life is what's really going to differentiate phones at this point. A lot of the high-end phones just all perform pretty well. I think smartphones have gotten to the point where PC desktops have gotten to. It was kind of the same curve, where in the early years of your PC desktop, you had to upgrade every year, if not within the year, just to keep up your hardware with the fast evolving software needs and demand. And so it was a need to upgrade, because if you didn't upgrade your hardware and you want to run the latest software, your hardware wouldn't be able to keep up. And so desktops got to a point where they're very mature, and you almost never have to upgrade your desktop if you're just doing everyday tasks. You know, only if you're doing heavy video editing or, you know, AutoCAD or something really intensive would you probably need to upgrade your hardware every year or so. but desktops are pretty solid. You got an i5 and i7 with 8 gigs of RAM and a solid state drive, and you're good for years. I think smartphones are getting to that point now. You used to have to upgrade your phone pretty much every year to keep up with a lot of the newer technologies, the software trends, etc. And now the smartphone hardware is the same as PC desktops, where it's very commoditized, it's very mature. The hardware is pretty much maxed out to this point to run most of any kind of software that's out right now. So unless we go into AR with higher demands or VR with higher demands on your mobile, you're going to be good with your current smartphone. Smartphones from 2 years ago are probably still just fine. Things like your Galaxy S6 Edge Plus, Note 5, all those phones from a couple years ago run perfectly well right now. You don't need to upgrade your phone because the hardware is just so commoditized and so mature right now. So I think that's what we're seeing in 2017. A lot of the manufacturers, not just OnePlus, are making incremental upgrades to their hardware. You know, HTC, Samsung, even what's looking like the iPhone 8 or whatever the new iPhone is going to be called, it all looks pretty incremental, mostly differentiating through hardware now. You know, people used to try to differentiate through software, especially on the Android side. Now they're all trying to differentiate through hardware. Samsung, LG, Xiaomi came out first with that bezel-less design, and that was a trend with the industry. Apple seems like they're going to follow suit, so everyone's trying to differentiate through their hardware and physical design. And so, you know, and the specs are just minor incremental spec bumps. So no disrespect or slamming OnePlus on that. You know, every other manufacturer's in the same boat, just like they are. I think the only disappointments that OnePlus fans might have is that there's no bezel-less design this time around. They said they're just a small company, don't have access to that kind of technology, probably in the bulk that they need. And maybe that's fair, but seems like a little bit of an excuse, because at this point, that brings me to probably my last point here, is that I think OnePlus as a company is now maturing, or should be maturing. Again, like we said, this is their 4th iteration of their phone. You know, they're a subsidiary of Oppo, and I think, you know, with their iterative hardware designs, they're getting better and better, and of course the price is going up and up, and right now we're maxed out at $540 for their top-end phone. And one quick thing about price is I think they're doing a really great job with the price, because they bumped it up and you're spending up to $540 now instead of $440 in the 3T, but there's no tax and it's free shipping, and so the price is the price. So I paid $540 shipped for the OnePlus 5, whereas for other phones like a Samsung Galaxy S8 or, you know, even an HTC U11, you know, like the U11 was $650, but I paid here in California, tax was around $50, so I spent, even with free shipping, over $700 if you didn't use the coupon code on a U11. And same difference with the S8 when it first launched. You know, it was $750 and $850, and you spend extra $50-$60 in tax on that, plus any kind of advanced shipping, and the price just jumps. But at least on the OnePlus 5, it's $540 shipped or $480 shipped, depending on the model you get, and I think that's great. But back to OnePlus maturing, I think they're at the inflection point right now where they're still marketing and selling small enough quantities to their main audience, which is the tech enthusiast audience and their OnePlus fans. And with the prices bumping up and the competition rising in this category, because now at $540, they're competing with a lot of the big boys right now, because you've got a U Ultra, which is $500 or less. You can find it for even the current smartphones from this year, like the LG G6, is being heavily discounted everywhere. It's $500 or less, depending on where you want to look, and carrier deals are even better. And even the S8 and the S8 Plus prices are coming down on those. I'm pretty sure the S8 unlocked, depending on where you can look, you might even find it for $550, no more than $650. And so, and the U11 is the same way. It's $600 with a discount code when it launched. So this is at $540, is kind of right in the middle and in the mix with all those high-end big brand phones. So people have to consider, right? Are you going to buy this OnePlus, or are you going to buy one of those proven brands? And unless you're a OnePlus or a technology enthusiast, you're going to go probably with something else. And so OnePlus is still selling to a limited audience, and their prices are going up and up, and I don't think that's a model they can sustain. At some point, even the tech enthusiast crowd are going to say it's not worth it, and they're going to start losing some of that fan support if the price keeps increasing. They built their business on being the flagship killer. We offer high-end specs for a low price, and I think one more or no more than 2 more iterations and their price will be way too high to be able to say that anymore. And a lot of their fans who jumped on board from that early, not necessarily promise, but from that perception of the company, high-end software, high-end hardware, and efficient software at a low price, it's not going to be what the company is anymore. And so they're going to have to expand themselves, find new markets, find new audiences. They're going to have to go mass market. And is their operations and their company big enough to support something like that? Do they have the supply chain for that? You know, can they manufacture and ship large quantities to meet mass market? Right now, they definitely can't. And so as that price goes up, they're going to have to expand their business to justify that price, expand their support, improve their shipping, improve their manufacturing and mass marketing and mass shipping to be able to stay in business. I think, honestly, if they don't do that within the next forever two, I don't see how they survive. So it'll really be interesting to see where OnePlus goes from here. But final thoughts, I think the OnePlus 5, yeah, initial thoughts were meh, but I think when you think about where the industry is at, even in 2017, you know, at that price point, the hardware and everything else that they're offering seems to match. I'm excited to get it in hand and test the hell out of those cameras because, like I said, I think, you know, the whole reputation of this phone rides on that camera. You know, spec bumps don't really matter because the 3T is flying for me. So we'll see. But like I said, if you want to see anything about the OnePlus 5 in particular or any other questions, let me know. But more importantly, drop a comment in the comments and let me know what you think about the OnePlus 5. Are you getting one? Yes or no? If not, why not? If you are, why? So what do you think about it? Let me know, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.